They must be loyal to God. And the next thing she told me, I pondered for days. And it is the secret. She said, remember, the righteous did not suddenly become righteous. They just refused to go over the cliff with the rest of society. That's what we must do. We must hold on to each other. Because the world is sucking us off a cliff. We must hold on to each other. We must put our differences aside and unite with the God of Abraham. Only He will save us if we're standing where we're supposed to stand. We are not to lose our humanity. If any powerful government would say again, no soup, we make a pot of soup. And we stand in righteousness. We stand in sanity. We must refuse to relinquish common sense. We must refuse to relinquish our humanity. And what will give us strength is to not meet and say, how much trouble is Israel in? How much trouble are we in? What will give us strength is to say, how much the enemies of mankind, how much trouble are they in? How much trouble are the enemies of Israel in? They are not enemies of mine. They are not enemies of yours. They are enemies of His. And He is the great equalizer. Our founders wrote the last line of the Declaration of Independence. With firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. It is time we take that pledge again, but understand every line. With firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. For the first time in man's history, we have the opportunity to change course. But we must recognize the truth. We must question with boldness. Does Ahmadinejad really mean it when he says Israel will burn in the fires of the Islamic fury? Yeah! Yes, he does. I kind of a rule of thumb. If somebody threatens to kill me, I'm going to take them seriously. Because it kind of sucks if they weren't joking. Do the Egyptians, who are now making signs that say, Jews, we're building the ovens, do they mean it? Yeah. Yes, they do. They say what they mean, and they mean what they say. And they're so emboldened because they know our press is complicit. They say it boldly. And so must we. We must only say the things that we mean and mean the things that we say. There's only going to be one winner in this battle. One. And it's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It is He that will win. Because He is a God of covenants. He will keep His covenants. But we must do our part. It is time now for a new civil rights era. A new movement of civil rights. Where people come together and stand in peace and love and service with the eye for freedom. stand together. The civil rights movement that is currently happening, those who claim the mantle of civil rights, are an embarrassment to those who have gone before them. It is why we must dismiss them. They hold no power over us if we do not fear them. If we hold no malice, to quote Lincoln, with malice toward none, they hold no power and they fall apart. The civil rights movement that is in the United States and now around the globe, it is a sham, it is a joke, and it is a growing threat to all humanity. To claim apartheid where there is none diminishes great men like Nelson Mandela and the millions that stood with him. To claim genocide where there is none diminishes the cry of terror in places like Darfur. To claim oppression where there is none destroys the hope that the world someday will hear our voices in places like Iran and Syria and the newly reoppressed people in Egypt. The left says the so-called civil rights leaders of today say they stand for women, yet they help hide the rapes of women in Occupy Wall Street. They say they stand for the oppressed, and yet they stand with the killers at Itamar. They say they for free speech. Believe me, I know this one to be true. They will silence, dismantle, smear, or destroy anyone who differs with them. Many times, I find it very difficult to find the difference between the so-called civil rights leaders and the terrorists and the killers and the dictators and the thugs they claim to be against.
You're right.
But again, the good news. This is why they will fail. They are perverting the words of great men like Martin Luther King. They are twisting them and turning them inside out. They are replacing actual words, actual meaning, with photo ops and a distorted stage play. God will not be mocked. The truth has power, and the truth belongs to Him. He will purify and He will protect. He will guide with a pillar of fire. This is a time of giants. It is an honor to be born because we have the opportunity. And there will be nothing in between. It will either be villain or hero. Why do people not really talk about the Holocaust in Germany? Why? They don't talk about it because they don't want to ask mom and dad. They don't want to know what grandpa did during the war. Too many say, well, I didn't really know. Yes, they did. As I left Auschwitz, I saw church after church after church. I was in the car as I was driving away, screaming at the churches, where were you? Oh, were you meeting there Sunday? Could you smell the bodies burn? Where were you? It's a time for giants. The question remains, which will you choose to be? Which will your neighbors be? I have chosen my path, and I have chosen it for my children, because I want them to be able to answer the question. I want my grandchildren to be able to answer the question. When everyone else is ashamed, I want my children and my grandchildren to be able to square their shoulders and say, my father stood. My family stood. That's an honor. We owe it to our children to give them that honor. It is a personal battle for each of us. God will not hold us blameless. Not to speak is to speak. Not to stand is to stand. It is personal for each of us. As man has learned in the past, you can hide a Jew from the wickedness of man, but you cannot hide man from the justice of God. Words are no longer good enough. Speeches are no longer good enough. Fundraisers are no longer good enough. Politicians taking care of things are no longer good enough. This week, I was reading the story of Joshua. The walls of Jericho peacefully came down. All they had to do was follow God, even when it didn't make any sense. Oh, you're going to go around this way? How many days we're going to... What? I can't even imagine. Somebody says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to walk around the Capitol 7 days. Last day we're going to do it 7 times. Oh, that's going to work. Not in a million years. They did it because they believed. They linked arms and marched. Sound familiar? It comes down when people are obedient and stand together in peace. The walls will come down. It is our